Hello and welcome to the lecture series on automobile engineering. In this lecture, we'll discuss about the steering mechanism and their control. So for perfect steering, we must always have an instantaneous center of rotation about which all the wheels must rotate under all conditions. That is the required condition. For this purpose, inner wheel has to turn more than the outer wheel because when we turn the vehicle, okay, the inner wheel has to turn more angle as compared to outer wheels. So two types of mechanisms are generally utilized and they are known as Davis mechanism and Ackermann mechanism in case of steering mechanisms. So Ackermann steering mechanism is universally used because of its simplicity. So we'll discuss about these two mechanisms in this lecture. So Davis mechanism is basically based on sliding pairs. Okay, it has sliding pairs, and Ackermann has turning pairs. Why I said these Ackermann systems are simple because they have turning pairs, so they are easier in construction. But the limitation is that the turning pairs are not able to maintain the condition of correct steering at all the situations. So because the sliding pair has more friction than the turning pair, as we know, because the sliding pairs are basically the higher pairs and turning pairs are the lower pairs. Therefore, the Davis mechanism will wear out more early as compared to the this Ackermann mechanism. Okay, so Ackermann steering gear is not mathematically accurate under all conditions of turning. So it is accurate in three positions. Okay, but the Davis mechanism, which is having sliding pairs, is accurate in all positions. So this is the unique benefit of Davis mechanism. But in fact, still we use the Ackermann steering mechanism due to turning pairs and simple construction. Okay, so we'll start with this steering mechanism in which we'll discuss the Davis mechanism. So in this Davis mechanism, we can see that this is tire, the positions, this C and D indicates the tire, okay, and this is stub axle over which the wheels are mounted, this other stub axle, okay, and there we can see a bell crank lever in the form of this steering arm. This CAK and LBD are the two bell crank levers which are having a pivot at point B and point A. These are two pivots. So this is a lever, okay, and we can check this angle. This is the if this is the straight ahead position, then this angle is say alpha. So this is the total angle is 90 plus L alpha. So the angle of the bell crank lever LBD is 90 plus alpha. Okay. Here also this angle CAK is 90 plus alpha. Okay. This angle is alpha. Okay. So the vehicle is moving in this direction. Say. So KL here this K and L is a cross link, and we can see here that the cross link KL is lying parallel to the link AB. So these are two parallel to each other. Okay, these links are parallel to each other. So this cross link KL will be sliding inside this system, that is bearing. Okay, this will slide. So this will not deviate from its straight ahead path. Okay, it will only slide. Okay, while the driver turns the steering wheel, this entire unit KL will be sliding inside this bearing. Okay, and which this sliding movement of KL link will be parallel to the AB, this AB and this KL. This KL will move parallel to AB all the time. Okay, so this will be able to maintain the condition of correct steering at all the times. So what is correct steering condition? We can find out this correct steering condition as tan alpha as B divided by 2L, where B is this distance from A to B, it is B. Okay, so this is B upon 2L. Okay, right? So L is the wheelbase. So this AB is termed as the wheel track, and wheelbase is the distance of the wheel from this position to the rear wheel. So L is the wheelbase. So if we want to set the steering system at correct angle, then this condition of tan alpha equal to B upon 2L must be maintained. Okay, under all conditions. and this is only possible with the Davis mechanism. So the range of B by L is 0.4 to 0.5. So angle alpha lies between an angle of 11.3 degree to 14.1 degree. Okay, so we have to design these links in such a way that this condition of correct steering, like tan alpha will be equal to B divided by 2L. So this selection of B and wheelbase must be in such a way that it must meet the condition B upon 2L equal to tan alpha. So we can compute the alpha value, tan alpha. So this angle has to be set accordingly, right? So in this bell crank lever CAK, there is a pin point at K and L. Okay, so at these pin points and about these A and B pivots, this entire crank lever can move. Okay, can change its position. So we can see that, or we can say that in that case of Davis mechanism, the condition of correct steering is met under all the situations of turning the steering system. Okay, so summarize here, we have seen that the short arm AK and BL are inclined at an angle 90 plus alpha to their stub axles AC and BD that we have seen. So the correct steering depends upon suitable selection of cross arm angle alpha, and that is being given by tan alpha equal to B divided by 2L, as I have told you, where B is the AB distance, and that is basically the distance between the pivots of the front axles. Okay, and L is the wheelbase. So the range of B by L is 0.4 to 0.5, and that's the reason why angle alpha lies between 11.3 and 14.1 degree. So this is for correct steering condition. Now, talking about the Ackermann steering mechanism, we can see that the links are there. This is the link AB. This is link another link KL, which is parallel, which is not parallel. Okay, that is not moving parallel to this link, because in that case we can see here there are certain joints, pivoted joints. Okay, so as I've told you, the instantaneous center of rotation must meet at a point. So only the condition of correct steering will be met. In that case, we can see that the pivot joints are used. Okay, so there are turning pairs inside these joints. So it is not possible to maintain the condition of correct steering at all the positions of the turning. So in that case of Ackermann mechanism, only three positions are correct: totally left, totally right, and the straight ahead position. Okay, at these three positions, this will behave as a perfect steering system or correct steering system. Okay, and under these three conditions, the instantaneous center of rotation will lie at a common end. Okay, so Ackermann mechanism can also be understood from this particular image. Okay, and these are the parameters that we have discussed, and this is an angle theta, this is angle alpha. Okay, so we can say that the Ackermann steering gear mechanism consists of a cross link connected to the short axles of the two front wheel through the short arms, forming a bell crank lever that we have seen here. Okay, so these forms bell crank levers, this RA and this, okay, and this SB. So these forms are bell crank levers, but at R, at A, at B, and at S, we have turning pairs. Okay, in that case. So when the vehicle is running straight, the cross link is parallel. The short arm, both of the short arms make angle alpha to the horizontal axis of the chassis. That angle is equal for both the cases when the vehicle is moving straight. So in order to meet the condition of correct steering, the links are suitably proportioned, and their lengths must be properly selected, and angle alpha is suitably selected. Okay, because as we know that in that case the correct steering condition is cot phi minus cot theta, that is equal to B by L. So here we can see that this is phi angle, the bigger one phi angle, and this is theta angle. Okay, so while taking a turn, it must be satisfied with the condition that cot phi minus cot theta must be equal to B by L. Okay, so L is the wheelbase. So this is the required condition for correct steering in case of Ackermann steering. Now we'll discuss about the conditions of understeer and oversteer. While taking a turn, the centrifugal force acts on the vehicle, which produces a side thrust, as we know. Okay, to sustain that force, the plane of the wheel must make some angle with the direction of motion of the vehicle. So basically, this is attained by the distortion of the tire, which is flexible, because we know that the tires are basically deformed. Okay, they may be deformed. Okay, so the angle through which the wheel has to turn to sustain the side force is called as slip angle. Some side thrust forces are there that has to be sustained, and this is known as slip angle. And the force produced due to this, that is at right angles to the plane of the wheel, which counters the side thrust, is known as cornering force. Because if we see over the plane of the wheel, then two forces are acting. The side thrust will be acting, and to counter that, a cornering force will be acting over that. And there is a gap between the side thrust line of action and the cornering force line of action, and that creates a turning couple that is known as overturning couple, and that rightening torque is being produced that causes the wheel to come to its normal position. Okay, so the value of the slip angle depends upon the amount of side force, the flexibility of the tire, the load carried by the wheels, and the several other factors may also come in picture, such as camber angle and condition of the road surface. In addition to that, the magnitude of the slip angle is small at low speeds and less sharp curves, and increases at high speeds and on the sharp turns. So till on excess of speed and sharpness of the curve, the wheel skids sideways. Okay. So we can say that for the same slip angle, positive camber basically increases the cornering force, while negative camber may decrease the cornering force. So the alteration in the cornering force due to camber is commonly referred to as camber force. So now we'll discuss about how this happens. Okay. So while turning, due to centrifugal force on the wheels, understeer or oversteer may be experienced. So we'll understand the understeer condition. When the slip angle of the front wheels is more than the slip angle of the rear wheels. So from this figure we can see, if this condition persists when the slip angle of the front wheels is more than the slip angle of the rear wheels, so what will happen? The radius of the turn that is intended to be obtained is increased. Okay, so there is a path drawn like this, and we have to follow this path. But we can see that even the driver is turning the steering wheel, but the car is not moving on the right path. Okay, so we can say that the vehicle will turn less sharply than it should be for given movement of the steering wheels. Okay, so in this condition the driver needs to steer more to get on the required position. Okay, so this is known as understeering condition. So I mean to say that the driver is applying the effort to turn the vehicle and turning the steering wheel, but still the car is not following the right path. It is turning less as compared to the required condition. So that is known as understeer. If we talk about the other condition, converse to this condition is oversteer. So when the slip angle of the front wheels is less than the slip angle of the rear wheels, this situation may arise. In that case, the radius of the turn is decreased. So the vehicle will turn more sharply than it should for a given radius of the steering wheel. Okay. In that condition, the driver will be turning less. Even the vehicle will take sharp turns. And that condition is known as oversteer. So we'll see the condition of